My name is Myra Shaw. I'm 68 years old, and 3 days ago, my daughter dragged my mother's sewing box to the curb and told me no one sews anymore. I carried it back inside without a word. That evening, my 8-year-old granddaughter tore open the pincushion, the burgundy velvet one my mother had kept since before I was born. What was hidden inside that stuffing changed everything about what I thought I owned, what my family thought they deserved, and what my mother had been protecting since 1971. But the sewing box was only the beginning. What my son-in-law did with the information and what I found out he'd been doing at his bank made the pincushion look like the easy part. Welcome back to Alpha Mom Stories, a channel where mothers share the moments that tested everything they believed and the quiet strength that carried them through. If this one stays with you, drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. I should tell you who I am beyond the name. I'm a tailor was, I suppose, though the hands never really retire. 32 years. I ran Shaw Alterations and Custom at 14 Main Street, a narrow storefront with 3 fitting rooms and a workshop in the back holding 3 industrial sewing machines that hummed like they had opinions. I started as a teenager apprenticing under my mother, Helen. She taught me to cut fabric the way a surgeon handles a scalpel. Measure twice, commit once, and never blame the cloth for a crooked hand. I didn't advertise, never needed to. Word of mouth was my only marketing. Judge Callahan's robes, Professor Wright's tweed jackets with the elbow patches he wore through every semester. Every bride in town for 2 decades came through my fitting room and half of them cried in it. Good stitches speak for themselves. The building at 14 Main Street, my mother bought it in 1971 for $8,500 cash. Cash she saved from 20 years of alterations, pressing and mending for women who couldn't afford department store prices. I grew up in that building. I ran my business in it. I retired from it 2 years ago. My husband Walter died 4 years back. Heart attack at 66. He was a school bus driver. Steady kind never missed a morning route in 29 years. Houses paid off worth about $410,000. Savings sit at $320,000. I'm comfortable. I'm independent. I still press my own shirts and hem my own curtains. Old habits don't die. They just change fabric. I measured fabric for 32 years. I can measure a person's intentions in about 32 seconds. That skill was about to matter more than any hem I'd ever sewn. Saturday morning, my daughter Brooke pulled into the driveway in that white SUV of hers, Dale riding passenger the back loaded with contractor bags and pack-in tape. A rented dumpster showed up on a flatbed 20 minutes later and parked itself on my front lawn like an uninvited guest. Mom, we talked about this. Your house needs a deep clean. You've got 30 years of stuff in here. I set down my coffee. I didn't ask for a deep clean Brooke. She was already pulling boxes from the garage. You don't have to ask. I'm your daughter. This is what daughters do. What daughters do, apparently, is fill a dumpster with your life. My reference library of fashion plates, Vogue patterns, butter catalog is 30 years of silhouettes I used for custom work, gone. Helen's cast iron skillet seasoned for 40 years, gone. Fabric bolts from the workshop, some of them vintage worth $15 to $30 a yard into the dumpster like bed sheets from a clearance bin. Then Brooke found the sewing box, cedar heavy. My mother's initials burned into the lid. HS in Helen's own hand. Brass hinges that hadn't been oiled in years but still held. The box smelled like cedar shavings and old thread. And every Saturday afternoon I spent at my mother's knee learning chain stitch. Brooke grabbed it by the side handles, dragged it across the porch. The brass hinges scraped against the concrete steps, a sound that went through me like a needle through silk. She set it next to the dumpster, stood up, brushed off her hands. No one sews anymore, Mom. It's just dust and needles. I was standing on the porch watching, holding my coffee with both hands so they wouldn't shake. I watched my daughter work that morning, and I remembered the girl she used to be. Brooke, at 10 years old, backpack sliding off one shoulder, standing in the kitchen doorway. Jenny Price said, "You're just a sewing lady." She said her mom is a lawyer. My mother was at the table that day pinning a pattern. Helen looked up and said the thing she meant is comfort. Myra has the hands. Brooke has the smile, both open doors. But Brooke didn't hear both open doors. She heard Myra has something I don't. Every summer, Helen tried to teach her. Sat her down at the machine, showed her how to guide the fabric, how to keep the seams straight, how to backstitch at the start so the whole line wouldn't unravel. But the thread tangled in Brooke's fingers. The seams puckered and pulled. The scissors slipped and cut a gash in a piece of linen Helen had been saving. Brooke quit at 14, never touched a needle again. She married Dale, a bank branch manager with a firm handshake and a retirement projection. She became a pharmaceutical sales rep. She bought a house in a subdivision with granite countertops and a 2-car garage. She drove that white SUV. She built a life that looked nothing like 14 Main Street. And every time she visited me, she saw the sewing box, Helen's initials. The thimbles lined up the fabric scraps, the world that had room for Myra and no room for Brooke. My daughter wasn't throwing away junk. She was throwing away the proof that she'd never belonged in my mother's world. Brooke didn't hate sewing. She hated that sewing didn't choose her. And that's a wound I understood even as she dragged my mother's legacy to the curb. Dale had gone inside to check the basement. Looking for what I don't know, probably sizing up what else could be thrown away or sold. Brooke was in the kitchen boxing up dishes she called old as if age were a character flaw. I walked down the porch steps down the front walk. The sewing box sat next to the dumpster. Cedar lit a jar. Thread spools spilled on the grass like scattered beads. A spool of burgundy silk had rolled into a puddle by the curb, soaking up rainwater from the night before. I bent down, picked up the spools one by one, put them back inside, closed the lid. The brass latch clicked like it was exhaling. 40-pound cedar and brass in memory. I lifted it with both arms the way you'd carry a sleeping child close to the chest. Careful on the steps up the porch, through the front door down the hall. Past the photos of Walter and Tyler and Lily on the wall into the bedroom. I set it on the floor next to my closet. The cedar smell filled the hallway, my mother's smell sawdust and lavender sachets and patience. Brooke appeared in the kitchen doorway. Mom, seriously, I just took that out. I didn't turn around. I didn't answer. I didn't argue. My mother taught me something that has nothing to do with sewing. You don't argue with someone who doesn't know what they're throwing away. Brooke huffed, went back to the dishes. The sewing box stayed. I sat on the edge of the bed and put my hand on the cedar lid. The brass was warm from the sun. Helen's initials under my palm. I sat there for a long time listening to my daughter dismantle my kitchen. By Sunday evening, the house felt like it had been through surgery. Brooke and Dale had loaded their SUV and driven away the afternoon before. Cabinets half-empty, shelves bare. The garage echoed. Tyler and Lily came at 6. Sunday dinner is our tradition. Tyler cooks pasta. I make the salad. And Lily sets the table with the good plates because she likes the flowers on the rim. Tyler is my son, 36 high school woodworking teacher, divorced raising Lily on his own. He's steady the way Walter was steady. Shows up, does the work, doesn't need applause. He teaches teenagers to build bookshelves and cutting boards, and he understands something Brooke never did. Things made by hand carry the weight of the person who made them. Lily is 8. Curly hair gap, toothed grin. She loves my bedroom because that's where the interesting things live. Old buttons, ribbon scraps, the magnifying glass Walter used for crossword puzzles. She found the sewing box on the floor. Grandma, can I play with the buttons? Gently. Those are your great-grandmother's. She opened the lid. Inside the trays were stacked. Bobbins needles, a tape measure, coiled like a sleeping snake. And the pin cushion. Burgundy velvet, big as a grapefruit, dense and heavy with pins sticking out at every angle like a tiny hedgehog. Lily pulled the pins out one by one, lined them up on the carpet like soldiers in a parade. Then she squeezed the pin cushion with both hands. Grandma, there's something hard inside. She pulled at the base seam. My mother's chain stitch 50 years old tight. And even as the day Helen sewed it, but 50 years is 50 years. The thread gave. The velvet tore along the bottom. Tyler was in the doorway. Mom, don't touch that. Let me. Tyler knelt on the carpet. He took the seam ripper from the sewing box. My mother's seam ripper bone handle still sharp, and carefully opened the fabric pocket that Lily had discovered inside the pin cushion. The pocket was hand-sewn closed with a whip stitch so tight you'd need to know it was there to find it. My mother's work. Unmistakable. Tyler reached inside and pulled out 3 things. First, a folded document, old paper brown at the creases soft as cloth from age. He unfolded it carefully. A property deed. 14 Main Street, purchased by Helen Shaw, 1971, $8,500. Never transferred, never probated. My mother's name in the county clerk's typeface, 55 years old. Second, a letter. My mother's handwriting, small, precise, the same hand that labeled every pattern piece and every button jar in the workshop, dated March 1998. The building at 14 Main Street is for Myra alone. She built her life in it. It is hers. I do not want it divided. Signed, Helen Shaw. Witnessed and notarized by Grace Abbott, our neighbor on Birch Street. Third, a silk pouch drawstring no bigger than a plum. Inside, a ring gold band center stone deep blue catching the lamplight. A sapphire 1.88 carats surrounded by old mine-cut diamonds set in a pattern I'd seen in photographs of my grandmother. Helen's mother's ring carried from Eastern Europe in a coat lining in the 1950s. I held the ring up to the lamp. The sapphire caught the light like a drop of midnight. Tyler was pale. Mom, what was inside the pincushion? I turned the ring slowly between my fingers. Your grandmother's whole life, Tyler. That's what was inside. My daughter had dragged a building deed worth $400,000 to the curb in a box she called Dust and Needles. Tyler didn't sleep that night. I know because he texted me at 2:00 a.m. Don't tell Brooke yet. And again at 6 a.m. I'm taking the ring to a gemologist Monday morning. He drove to Dr. Renee Mallister, a certified gemologist Patricia Hull had recommended years ago when a client's estate needed appraisal. Patricia was my attorney, also my alteration client. 15 years of hemming her courtroom suits. She'd sent me a Christmas card every December with a note that said, "Still the best hems in town." Tyler sat in the gemologist's office while Dr. Callister examined the ring under a loupe. Natural sapphire. 1.8 carats. Excellent color saturation, cashmere grade blue. She said, the diamonds were old mine. Cut consistent with 1920s European settings. The mounting was period appropriate. Estimated value, $38,500. Tyler drove straight to my door. He was pale. The kind of pale that comes from doing math you don't want to finish. Mom, that ring is worth $38,500. I poured him coffee. My mother carried it from the old country in her coat lining. She never wore it, too afraid it would get stolen. And Brooke tried to throw the box it was into the curb. We sat with that for a minute. The sewing box held more than the ring. Tyler had cataloged everything. 14 mother-of-pearl buttons worth $800 total. Helen's silver thimble collection. 12 thimbles, $2,400. Hand-forged scissors, $350 antique value. Total contents of my mother's sewing box. Approximately $42.50 in tangible goods plus a building deed. Do we tell Brooke? Tyler asked. I wrapped both hands around my mug. Not yet. First, I need to understand what that deed means. I picked up the phone and called Patricia Hull. Tyler believed in family transparency. I raised him that way. So when he called Brooke the next morning, I wasn't surprised. Disappointed maybe, but not surprised. He told her about the ring and the deed. Said it straight. That's Tyler's way. Brooke's reaction came in 3 phases, and I know because Tyler told me each one minute by minute like a man reporting a weather event he'd just barely survived. Phase 1, shock. What inside the pincushion? Phase 2, guilt. 2 seconds of silence. Tyler said he could hear her breathing. She was remembering the curb, the dumpster, the brass hinges scraping concrete. Phase 3, the pivot. Those are family heirlooms. Grandma Helen's estate was supposed to be split. Tyler Helen's will left all personal property to Mom. The letter says for Myra alone. Brooke. A letter isn't a legal document, Tyler. It's notarized. Silence again. Then I need to talk to Dale. That evening, Brooke sat across from her husband at their granite countertop, the one that looked nothing like 14 Main Street, and laid it out. Dale listened the way bankers listen, quiet calculating already running numbers before the sentence ended. "Find out the building," Brookie said. "Find out if the deed is even valid." Dale nodded. "I can run a title check from the bank's system. The machinery started. I want to pause here." "Mo, my daughter dragged my mother's sewing box to the curb on Saturday. By Monday night, she was asking a bank manager to run a title check on the building hidden inside it. If you've ever watched someone you raised calculate the dollar value of your memories, you know what that Monday felt like. Drop a comment if you've been there. Subscribe if you haven't already. Because what Dale did next crosses a line that can't be unstitched. Dale didn't waste time. Tuesday morning, 8:15. Before the first customer walked in, he sat at his desk at the bank and ran a title search on 14 Main Street. The county assessed the property at $195,000. That was the paper number, but Main Street had been changing. A coffee roaster moved in 2 blocks north, then a brewery, then a boutique selling candles that cost $40 each. The real market value sat somewhere between $340,000 and $400,000. The title told the story Dale wanted to hear. Registered to Helen Shaw, deceased 2003. Never transferred through probate. Myra had been paying property taxes and insurance under her own name for over 20 years. But on paper, the title was cloudy. Unclear ownership, a gap between the dead and the living that a careful man could step through. Dale was a careful man. He picked up the phone, called Kirk Brangan, a real estate developer who'd been buying Main Street properties the way some men collect watches one at a time all in a row. They met for coffee at Gus's diner. "Corner booth?" Dale ordered black coffee. Kirk ordered the same. "My mother-in-law has a building on Main Street," Dale said. "Title's cloudy. If we get it listed, it's worth $400,000 easy." Kirk leaned forward. "What's in it for me?" "First right of refusal below market $320. And for you, finder's fee 10%. Their waitress was Carol Myers, 55 apron tied at the hip. She'd been waiting tables at Gus's for 22 years and getting her clothes altered by me for 18. She refilled their coffee without a word. Dale said, "The old lady doesn't even know what she's sitting on." Carol heard every word. She said nothing. She carried the coffee pot back to the kitchen and kept working her shift. Brooke made the call Wednesday evening. "I know the time because Tyler was at my house when his phone buzzed with a text from Cousin Dave. Is Aunt Judith telling the truth about your mom?" The call had gone to Judith Pratt first. Judith was married to my brother Frank for 31 years before he passed. "Frank and I were close. Judith and I were polite. There's a difference, and it lives in the silences between holiday dinners." "Did you know Grandma Helen hid a property deed in her sewing box?" Brooke asked. "And a ring worth almost $40,000. Judith's response was immediate. The speed of a woman who'd been waiting 25 years for this exact moment. "I always said Helen's estate wasn't handled right. Frank got $30,000 in cash, and Myra got everything else. That's what I said," Brooke told her. Judith shifted gears. Smooth practice like she'd rehearsed this in the shower. "And Myra's been living alone in that big house. She's not as sharp as she used to be." "Brooke, I think someone should look into her competency." That word, competency. It hung in the air like smoke. Judith started making calls. Cousin Dave, Cousin Linda, the Ferraro family old church friends. Her message was consistent, persistent, and poison. "Have you noticed Myra lately? I'm worried about her." 25 years of resentment bottled and labeled concern. Judith didn't want my building. She wanted to prove that my mother had been wrong to trust me with the family legacy, and my daughter had given her the phone number to start. Wednesday afternoon, Patricia Holt's office on Walnut Street, second floor above the insurance agency. Her desk was covered in the kind of organized chaos that would give Brooke a seizure. Files stacked sticky notes on the monitor, a coffee mug that said, "Objection sustained." Patricia examined the deed, held it up to the window. Light, looked at the notary seal on Helen's letter, turned the witness statement from Grace Abbott over twice. "The deed is genuine," she said. Helen purchased 14 Main Street in 1971. It was never transferred through probate common for that generation. She set the papers down. But here's what matters, Myra. You've occupied, maintained, insured, and paid taxes on that building for over 20 years. That's adverse possession. And Helen's letter notarized witnessed is an explicit declaration of intent. So it's mine. It's yours. We file at the county recorder's office. Quiet title action, 30 days, maybe 45, and the ring, the thimbles, the buttons. Patricia leaned back. Personal property gifted to you under Helen's will, confirmed by the letter. No inheritance split applies. I picked up Helen's letter, read it again. One line I kept coming back to. The way your tongue keeps finding a chipped tooth. Never let anyone take what women before you bled to keep. My mother hid a building deed in a pincushion. She hid gemstones in silk. She sewed survival into every stitch the same way her mother had sewn a sapphire ring into a coat lining to carry it across an ocean. And my daughter called it dust and needles. While I was sitting in Patricia's office learning what my mother had left me, Dale was sitting at his bank terminal stealing something else entirely. He pulled my accounts checking. Savings certificates of deposit, all of it. My accounts had been at his branch for 25 years. Legacy accounts opened back when the bank was still locally owned and the manager knew your middle name. $142,000 in savings, $38,000 in CDs, $12,000 in checking. Dale took screenshots, sent them to Brooke with a text. Your mom has almost $200,000 just at our branch, plus the building, plus the ring. We're talking $650,000 plus in assets she's managing alone. Those quotation marks around managing alone, I saw them later. They were doing a lot of work. What Dale didn't know, what no amount of banking experience taught him to check, was that the bank's compliance system flagged every employee access to accounts of known relatives. It's automated silent. It logged Dale's employee ID the time 2:47 p.m. and every account number he opened. Roger Underhill, the compliance officer, made a note. These flags get reviewed monthly. He didn't act yet. But the digital fingerprint existed permanent as ink on paper. Meanwhile, Patricia had requested my bank records through proper channels, my authorization, my signature, legal stationery. When the records arrived a few days later, she noticed something on the access log. Dale's employee ID accessing my accounts on a date when I'd made no transactions, no deposits, no withdrawals, no reason for any employee to open those files. Myra, Patricia said, "Your son-in-law accessed your accounts from his employee terminal." She paused. That's a federal violation. Dale thought he was the smartest person in the room. The bank's compliance software disagreed. Thursday morning, Patricia's conference table. I brought everything. The cedar sewing box sat open on the polished wood, brass hinges catching the overhead light, Helen's initials facing the window. Next to it, the pincushion, torn velvet fraying at the seam. Helen's chain stitch visible along the base like a signature no one was meant to read. The ring in its silk pouch, the thimbles in a row, 12 silver thimbs, each one from a different decade, each one worn smooth on the thumb pad. The mother-of-pearl buttons on a cloth iridescent under the fluorescent lights, the hand-forged scissors, black iron still sharp enough to cut silk. Next to the box, the deed. Helen's letter. The notarized witness statement from Grace Abbott. Doctor. Mallister's gemologist appraisal, 14 pages. Photograph certification numbers, and next to all of that, my records. 35 years of business documents, tax returns from 1990 to 2022, property tax receipts from 1990 to present insurance records, continuous coverage, and $85,000 in renovation receipts for the building. The roof in 2004, the plumbing in 2009, the electrical upgrade in 2016. Every receipt filed, every invoice documented, every check number recorded. Patricia stood at the end of the table and looked at the spread. This is the most thorough chain of ownership I've seen from a client who didn't have an attorney for 30 years. I straightened a thimble that had gone crooked. I'm a tailor. I keep records of every alteration fabric type measurement cost date. If I can track 10,000 hems, I can track a building. Patricia nodded. We filed the deed Monday. Quiet title action. I'm preparing a cease and desist for Dale and a formal complaint to the FDIC. I picked up the pin cushion, ran my thumb along Helen's chain stitch, the same stitch she taught me at her kitchen table when I was 8 years old. My mother sewed this pocket nearly 30 years ago. She sewed a secret into it that outlasted her. And my daughter said, no one sews anymore. Friday afternoon, I was in the kitchen making tea. Chamomile, the kind Walter used to say, tasted like drinking a garden. When my phone rang, the caller ID said Gus's Diner. Mrs. Shaw, it's Carol. Carol Myers from the diner. Carol had been coming to me for alterations since her daughter was in elementary school. I'd let out the waistband on her work slacks twice, hemmed her Sunday dress 3 times, and altered her daughter Madison's prom dress for free the year Carol's ex-husband stopped sending child support. I need to tell you something Mrs. Shaw and I should have called sooner. She told me everything. Dale and Kirk Brangen at her corner booth 3 days earlier. The coffee, the conversation she wasn't supposed to hear. He said, the old lady doesn't even know what she's sitting on. Those were his exact words. Then he offered, below market, $320,000, and for Dale Finder's fee, 10%, $32,000. I set down my tea, the chamomile steam curled up between us through the phone. Thank you, Carol. Would you be willing to tell my attorney what you told me? I'll tell anyone who asks. You altered my daughter's prom dress when I couldn't afford it. The least I can do is tell the truth. I called Patricia that afternoon. Patricia took Carol's statement over the phone and scheduled a meeting the next day to prepare a sworn affidavit. The picture was complete now. Dale had contacted a developer, offered below-market sale, negotiated a personal finder fee, all using information he got by illegally accessing my bank records and running a title search from his desk. My mother taught me to keep my stitches tight and my records tighter. Dale kept neither. Tyler called me Saturday morning. His voice had that edge, the same tone he uses when one of his students runs a bandsaw without the guard. Mom, Aunt Judith has been calling people. Cousin Dave, Cousin Linda, the Ferraro family. She's telling everyone you're slipping. I dried my hands on the kitchen towel. What exactly did she say Cousin Dave called me directly? He said Judith used the word dementia. Dementia, the word my sister-in-law chose to describe the woman who hemmed Dave's wife's curtains 4 months ago. Ellen had said they were perfect, hung exactly 3/4 of an inch above the floor just the way she wanted. She's persistent, Tyler said. She's been persistent for 25 years? I folded the towel, set it on the counter. Judith hasn't been waiting for me to fail Tyler. She's been waiting for the chance to say your grandmother was wrong. Wrong about what? Wrong about leaving the sewing box and everything it held to me instead of splitting it with the family. Wrong about trusting the daughter who could thread a needle over the daughter-in-law who couldn't. I called Patricia that afternoon. If someone challenges my competency, what do I need? Patricia didn't hesitate. Documentation of your functioning business records, financial management, medical clearance. You have all of that, Myra. You ran a business until 2 years ago. You manage your own finances. Your doctor cleared you in March? Good, because I think they're building a case. Let them build it, Patricia said. We'll build ours better. I put the phone down, looked at the sewing box sitting on my bedroom floor. My mother had been a patient woman. She taught me to be one, too. Monday morning, Patricia filed the deed at the county recorder's office in Harrisburg. The quiet title action was initiated. Paperwork filed fees. Paid clock started. 30 to 45 days until 14 Main Street was officially legally permanently mine. Dale found out within 24 hours. Being a bank branch manager in a small town means you know people at the courthouse, people at the title company, people at the assessor's office. The same network that lets you run title searches from your desk also delivers gossip at the speed of a phone call. Tuesday afternoon, Dale called Brooke from his office. Closed the door first. Your mother filed the deed. She has an attorney. Patricia Hull. I imagine Brooke's face. Patricia Hull, Mom's alteration client. She's not just an alteration client. She's a property attorney. Your mother is smarter than you think. Dale called Kirk Brangen next. The developer listened for 30 seconds. Then it's off. Kirk said, "I don't buy contested property. And Dale, don't use my name." The line went dead. $32,000 in finder's fee evaporated in a 10-second phone call. Kirk Brangan moved on the way developers do quickly and without looking back. Dale sat at his desk. The compliance flag was already in the system. The deed was already filed. The developer was already gone. Every door he'd been trying to open was shutting one after another like dominoes falling in a hallway. He called Brooke that evening. "We need to move faster. If we get family consensus, we can challenge the quiet title." Brooke was quiet for a moment. "Then I'll call a family meeting Saturday at Mom's house, my kitchen, my table." She had no idea whose stage she was stepping onto. Patricia and I spent Wednesday through Friday building the case. Her conference table looked like a war room if the general were a 68-year-old Tor and the weapons were paper. Document 1 certified copy of the newly recorded deed, filed, stamped, sealed by the Dauphin County Recorder's Office. Myra Shaw, owner of 14 Main Street. Document 2. Helen's letter, the original, in a clear protective sleeve. My mother's handwriting steady as a hymn. Document 3. Dr. Mallister's full gemological appraisal. Ring $38,500. Thimble collection $2,400. Mother of pearl buttons $800. Hand-forged scissors $350. Total personal property $42.50. Document 435 years of records, tax returns, property tax receipts, insurance certificates, renovation invoices totaling $85,000, the roof, the plumbing, the electrical, every dollar documented. Document 5. Dale's bank access log. His employee ID, the date, the time, 2:47 p.m. My account numbers listed in the system's own language. Document 6. Carol Meyer's sworn affidavit, notarized that Thursday. Every word of Dale's diner conversation captured in legal ink. Document 7 cease and desist letter addressed to Dale Enos, plus a draft FDIC complaint, ready to file Monday if necessary. 7 documents, 7 threads, and I knew how to weave them. "When do they want to meet?" Patricia asked. "Saturday. Brooke wants it at my house. She thinks it's her stage." Patricia closed the last folder. "It's your house, Myra. It's always been your stage." I laid my hand on the sewing box. The brass hinges were cool under my fingers. Helen's initials smooth from decades of palms passing over them. My mother sewed a pocket that stayed hidden for nearly 30 years. I could keep 7 documents in a folder for 5 days. Patience runs in the family, threaded straight through the women. Friday night. The house was quiet. Tyler and Lily had gone home after dinner. The dishes were washed. The coffee pot was cleaned. The kitchen table, Walter's oak table, the one he built the year we moved in, stood empty under the overhead light waiting for tomorrow. I went to the bedroom. The sewing box sat on the floor where it had been since I carried it back. I knelt beside it, opened the lid. The cedar smell rose like a memory taking a breath. I picked up the pincushion. Torn velvet fraying at the base where Lily's small hands had pulled it apart. Helen's chain stitch visible along the seam, each loop holding the next exactly the way she taught me. I remembered 1968. I was 12. Helen at the kitchen table guiding my hands on the fabric. The chain stitch is the strongest stitch there is. Myra, each loop holds the next. You break one, the whole line unravels. But if you sew it right, nothing can pull it apart. I picked up the silk pouch, held the ring up to the bedside lamp. The sapphire caught the light, deep blue. Almost black at the center, bright at the edges. My mother brought this ring from the old country in a coat lining. She hid it in a pincushion for decades. She sewed a deed into velvet. She trusted me to find it, or trusted that someone would eventually when it mattered most. Tomorrow, my daughter would sit at my kitchen table and tell me the building belonged to the family. My sister-in-law would say I was confused. My son-in-law would say he was being smart. And I would show them what a woman who sewed for a living can do with the right thread. My mother hid her most precious things inside a pincushion, not in a bank vault, not in a fireproof safe. in a pincushion because she knew the world underestimates women who work with their hands. Tomorrow I was going to walk into my own kitchen and prove that underestimating a seamstress is the most expensive mistake my family ever made. Stay with me. The meeting is next. Saturday, 10 a.m. Sunlight through the kitchen window, landing on Walter's oak table like a spotlight. I'd put on my gray cardigan, the one I made myself. French seams, horn buttons, pockets deep enough for a thimble and a phone. Helen's ring on my right hand, a canvas tote bag at my feet, tucked under the table where no one would notice. Brooke arrived first, confident, hair blown out. She carried a manila folder printouts of Main Street property values. A spreadsheet she'd made on her computer titled Family Asset Summary. She set it on the table like she was presenting to a board of directors. Dale followed. Blue suit jacket, no tie, bank posture, shoulders, square chin level. He carried his laptop under one arm. He sat next to Brooke and opened it without asking. Judith arrived at 10:15 with Cousin Dave and Cousin Linda. Dave is 52, an accountant, quiet, methodical, and comfortable. Linda is 49, warmer, sharper. The kind of woman who reads the room before she reads the agenda. Judith had been briefing them all week. Her version of briefing. Anyway, Tyler arrived last. He sat next to me. Didn't bring anything. Didn't need to. Brooke took charge, standing at the end of the table, my table in my kitchen. Thank you all for coming. This is about Mom's future and the family property. 6 people at the table. A 7th parked outside in a gray sedan on the street. Patricia Holt engine off. Briefcase on the passenger seat waiting for a text. Brooke brought a spreadsheet. I brought a cedar box and 35 years of receipts. She just didn't know it yet. Brooke opened her folder. She'd printed color charts, bar graphs, a map of Main Street with property values annotated. My daughter had always been thorough when money was involved. The building is worth at least $350. The ring is almost $40,000. The antiques add up. We're looking at nearly $500,000 in family assets that one person is holding. She turned to Cousin Dave and Cousin Linda. I'm not saying Mom is doing anything wrong. I'm saying Grandma Helen would have wanted this shared. Judith right on cue. Helen always believed in family. Dale opened his laptop. If we sell the building at market value split among the heirs, Tyler cut in. What heirs Dale Mom is the heir? Helen's will. Tyler, this isn't about the will. Brooke's voice had that edge. The pharmaceutical sales edge. Pleasant, firm, absolutely certain she was right. It's about what's right. I hadn't spoken. I was watching, measuring the way I measured fabric, letting them show their full length before I made the cut. Judith leaned toward Cousin Dave's stage, whispering loud enough for the table. I've been worried about Myra. She lives alone. She hoards things, that sewing box. She wouldn't even let Brooke throw it away. Dave shifted in his chair. Linda looked at me. I looked back. Steady, calm the way you hold a measuring tape against someone's shoulder line. Level. My daughter used the word right. My sister-in-law used the word worried. Neither of them used the word sorry. Silence settled over the table. 6 faces turned toward me. The chair at the head of the table, my chair at my table in my kitchen. Brooke, you said this is about what's right. I kept my voice the way I keep a seam. Even measured, no slack. I agree. Let me show you what's right. I reached into my cardigan pocket, took out my phone, typed one word, and sent it. Now, 2 minutes. That's how long it took. Long enough for Dale to glance at his laptop screen and then back at the front door. Long enough for Judith to fidget with her purse clasp. Long enough for Brooke to say, Mom, what are you? The front door opened. Patricia Holt walked in. Navy suit, the one I'd hemmed last October. Sleeve length adjusted a 1/4 inch because Patricia's left arm is slightly longer than her right. Briefcase in hand. She pulled out the chair next to mine and sat down. Brooke went rigid. Mom, you brought a lawyer. This is a family meeting. It is. And Patricia has been family for 15 years. I've hemmed every suit she owns. Patricia opened her briefcase. The clasp snapped like a period at the end of a sentence. Good morning. I'm Patricia Hall, attorney for Myra Shaw. I have documents relevant to this discussion. Dale's face changed, not all at once. It was like watching a tide go out, color draining slowly from the cheeks, the jaw tightening, the eyes going flat. He recognized what was happening. His laptop suddenly seemed like a toy. "Judith, this is unnecessary. We're just talking." I turned to her. "Then let's talk with documents, Judith. You'll find they're more reliable than phone calls." Her mouth tightened. Cousin Dave leaned back in his chair. The oak creaked. Patricia placed the first document on the table. She set it in the center, where everyone could see it the way a dealer lays down a card. "This is the original property deed to 14 Main Street purchased by Helen Shaw in 1971 for $8,500 found among Helen's personal effects." She paused. "Let them look. As of this past Monday, this deed has been recorded at the Dauphin County Recorder's Office in Myra Shaw's name, sole beneficiary under Helen's will." Dale's fingers curled on the edge of the table. "A quiet title action has been initiated. Given 20-plus years of occupancy tax payment and maintenance, the title will be cleared within 30 to 45 days. Brooke's voice came out thin. "You already filed it." "I filed it because it's my building, Brooke." I kept my hands on the table steady. "I've worked in it for 32 years. I've paid the taxes for 20. I've replaced the roof, the plumbing, and the electrical." I opened the folder in front of me. 35 years of renovation receipts, $85,000, documented every invoice, every canceled check, every contractor's name. "Here are the receipts." Judith drew breath like she was about to jump off a diving board, but Helen intended. Patricia held up a clear plastic sleeve, inside yellowed paper creased from decades folded in velvet. Helen's handwriting small and precise. Helen's intent is documented. Dated 1998, notarized by Grace Abbott. The kitchen went quiet. Even the coffee pot stopped gurgling. I took the letter from Patricia. She offered it and I reached for it the way you reach for something holy. Careful, both hands, knowing the weight isn't in the paper. This is my mother's handwriting, dated March 1998. Notarized by Grace Abbott. I read the building at 14 Main Street is for Myra alone. She built her life in it. It is hers. I do not want it divided. I paused, let the words settle into every corner of that kitchen. Then the second line. Never let anyone take what women before you bled to keep. Cousin Linda pressed her hand over her mouth. Cousin Dave was staring at his own hands on the table like he'd never seen them before. Tyler's jaw was set. He didn't move. Judith! Helen was always Helen left Frank $30,000. Judith, my voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Frank never complained, not once in 20 years. You did for 25. She opened her mouth, closed. It opened it again. Nothing came out. 25 years of phone calls and whispered resentment, and she had no answer for 7 words from a dead woman's letter. That is not Helen's failure, Judith. That is yours. Tyler put his hand on my shoulder. I didn't need it. My hands were steady. My voice was level. And my mother's words were still hanging in the air like thread stretched between 2 pins. But I accepted it because Tyler was telling me what I already knew. I wasn't alone at this table. Brooke was pale. She hadn't spoken since the deed. Her spreadsheet sat untouched. Her color charts and bar graphs looked like toys next to my mother's handwriting. Helen had spoken, and 23 years after her death, she was still the clearest voice in the room. I let the silence work. A tour knows when to stitch and when to leave the fabric alone. The building is settled. The ring, the thimbles, the buttons. Personal property gifted in Helen's will and confirmed in her letter. Patricia can provide the legal analysis to anyone who wants it. Brooke's voice came from somewhere small. Mom, I just thought, I know what you thought, Brooke, but I'm not finished. I turned to Dale. He was sitting very still, the way a man sits when he's calculating whether the door is close enough to reach. Dale, I want to talk about what you did last week. His hands went flat on the table, palms down. The banker's pose. I'd seen steadier hands on first-time brides at their final fitting. Patricia opened the next folder. 2 matters. The first involves your bank. The second involves a diner called Gus's. Dale's composure cracked, a hairline fracture running through his face. He knew about the bank access. He'd done it himself, after all. But the diner, he looked at Patricia, then at me, then back at Patricia. He didn't think anyone had been listening at Gus's. Cousin Dave uncrossed his arms. Linda sat up straighter. Tyler hadn't moved, but his hand was still on my shoulder. Steady. The kitchen smelled like coffee and cedar and something else I couldn't name. Something that felt like the moment before you make the first cut into expensive fabric. You've measured. You've marked. The scissors are open. You cut. Patricia placed the bank access log on the table printed on the bank's own letterhead. Dale's name. Dale's employee. ID, the date, the time. On the 14th of this month at 2:47 p.m., an employee at your bank branch accessed Myra Shaw's checking savings and CD accounts. The employee ID is yours, Dale. Dale's mouth opened. I was just checking. Under the Graham-Leach-Billy Act, a bank employee accessing a customer's accounts without authorization is a federal violation. The bank's compliance system flagged your access. Dale looked at Brooke. Brooke looked at Dale. The granite countertop life they'd built together was developing cracks in real time. I kept my voice level. The same voice I used when explaining to a bride that a dress needed another fitting. Calm, factual, no room for argument. You accessed my bank records from your desk. That's not a family decision, Dale. That's a federal violation. The color left Dale's face. True white. The color of a man who realizes the compliance flag exists in a system he cannot reach on a server. He cannot touch in a record that cannot be deleted. Brooke turned to him. Dale. What did you... I was trying to help the family understand. Patricia steady. A cease and desist has been prepared. A formal FDIC complaint is drafted and will be filed Monday if necessary. Dale's laptop sat open on the table, useless. His spreadsheets and property values and finder's fees, all of it irrelevant now. The bank's own system had written the only document that mattered. Patricia placed Carol Myers' sworn affidavit on the table next to the bank access log, next to the deed. Next to Helen's letter. The documents formed a line across the oak surface like evidence at a trial, which in every way that mattered this was. 3 days after learning about the deed, Dale Andis met with Kirk Brangen, a developer at Gus's Diner. Their waitress, Carol Myers, a longtime client of Myra, overheard the conversation. Patricia read from the affidavit. Her voice was courtroom flat, no inflection. The facts didn't need decoration. The old lady doesn't even know what she's sitting on. Direct quote, Mr. Ennis, he offered below market price $320,000 and negotiated a personal finder fee 10%, $32,000. Cousin Dave stood up, his chair scraped against the kitchen floor. I've heard enough. Myra, I'm sorry I came. Judith told me you were confused. You're the clearest person in this room. Cousin Linda turned to Judith. Judith, you should be ashamed. Judith gripped her purse. Said nothing. 25 years of phone calls and the room had turned on her in 90 seconds. I reached under the table, lifted the cedar sewing box, set it in the center of the table between the documents, brass hinges, Helen's initials. I opened it and took out the pin-cushion torn velvet chain stitch, visible, held it up. My mother sewed a pocket no one found for nearly 30 years. But Carol heard every word you said over coffee. Dale, I set the pin cushion down, looked at Brooke. You told me no one sews anymore. My mother sewed her whole life into this box. You just couldn't see the stitches. Dale's voice came out cracked. I was trying to help. You were trying to sell my building for $320,000 and pocket $32,000. That's not help, Dale. That's theft with a business card. The room went still. The kind of still that has weight. You feel it press against your chest. Dale was staring at the table. His hands had curled into fists, then opened, then curled again like a man trying to find something to hold on to. Brooke's eyes were wet, not red yet. Just glazed. The tears hadn't committed. Judith gripped her purse with both hands, knuckles white. Her mouth aligned so thin you could thread a needle through it. Tyler hadn't moved. Cousin Dave was standing by the door. Cousin Linda was shaking her head slowly back and forth like a metronome counting out the end of something. Patricia, is there anything else? Patricia looked at Dale. The FDIC complaint will be filed Monday unless Mr. Ennis resigns voluntarily and provides written acknowledgement. That's not a negotiation. That's an opportunity. Dale, you're gonna ruin my career. You accessed my private financial records and tried to sell my building. I'm offering you a door. Walk through it or wait for the FDIC to knock. I turned to Brooke, my daughter, 43 years old, the girl who couldn't thread a needle and married a man who tried to sell what her grandmother built. Brooke, you are my daughter. I love you. I will always love you. I let that sit because it's true, and the truth deserves its own space. But you will never make a financial decision for me. You will never enter my home and decide what I keep and what I throw away. And you will never ever drag my mother's sewing box to the curb again. I carried that box back inside without a word because I learned from my mother, you don't argue with someone who doesn't know what they're throwing away. After the meeting, the kitchen emptied the way a theater empties after the last act. Dale left first. No goodbye, no eye contact, just the front door closing with a click that said everything his mouth couldn't. Judith left with Cousin Dave and Linda. Dave held the door for her. Linda didn't look at her. Judith's heels clicked down the front walk quick and sharp, the sound of a woman who knows she lost but won't say it out loud. Tyler was washing coffee mugs at the sink. Brooke was sitting at the table, mascara stress in her lap. Mom. I waited. Grandma never taught me to sew. Her voice cracked on the word sew like dry thread snapping. She tried every summer and I couldn't do it. The thread tangled, the seams puckered, and every time she looked at you and said, Myra has the hands, I felt like I had nothing. I sat across from her, my daughter. Your grandmother loved you, Brooke. She loved you more because you could do what she could do. A long pause. The faucet ran behind us. Tyler kept his back turned, giving us the room. Maybe she did, I said. And maybe that's not fair, but it doesn't give you the right to throw away what she left me. Brooke nodded, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, stood up, left. No hug, no reconciliation. Not yet. Maybe not ever fully. But the truth was on the table like a pattern pinned to fabric. The shape was there. Whether anyone sewed it together was up to them. The consequences arrived the way good stitches hold. Quietly, permanently, one after another. Within 2 weeks, Dale resigned from the bank. The compliance department had already escalated his case. Resignation was his only path that didn't end with a federal investigation. He took a position at an insurance agency 2 towns over. Lower pay, no access to anyone's accounts but his own. Brooke blamed Dale for going too far. Dale blamed Brooke for starting it. Their kitchen got quieter by the day. Judith's campaign collapsed in a single phone call. Cousin Dave told her directly, "Don't call me about Myra again." Cousin Linda stopped answering entirely. 25 years of whispering, and Judith finally got what she'd built toward. Not vindication, but silence. The quiet title action proceeded on schedule. 43 days after filing the deed to 14 Main Street was recorded in my name. Clear title, no encumbrances. Dr. Callister completed the final appraisal. Ring $38,500. Thimble collection $2,400. Buttons $800. Scissors $350. Total $42,500. Insured under my homeowner's policy. Patricia held the FDIC complaint in reserve. Insurance, she called it. I called it thread. The kind you keep in the drawer because you never know when something needs mending. I drove to 14 Main Street on a Tuesday morning. First time since I retired 2 years ago. The key still worked. The door still stuck in the same spot upper right corner where the frame swelled every summer. Inside, dust covered the cutting table. The 3 sewing machines sat in the workshop covered in canvas cloths. I draped over them my last day. I didn't sell. I didn't lease to Kirk Brannigan or anyone like him. I converted the front room into a community sewing workshop, free classes on Saturdays. Tyler built new works from reclaimed pine. Patricia donated fabric from her mother's collection. The first class 8 women and girls ages 9 to 72. One of them was Lily, sitting at the machine Helen bought in 1971. Tongue out. Feet barely reaching the pedal. My mother bought this building with cash from 20 years of alterations. She hid the deed in a pincushion. I opened a sewing class in it. I didn't put a sign out front. Word of mouth. Good stitches speak for themselves. I repaired the pin cushion on a Wednesday evening. New burgundy velvet, the same shade sourced from a fabric shop in Lancaster that still carries the old stock. I kept Helen's chain stitch visible at the base. Didn't cover it. That stitch was the signature. And signatures don't get hemmed over. The ring went back in its silk pouch. The pouch went back in the sewing box. Brass hinges, oiled cedar, polished with lemon oil and a soft cloth. Helen's initials retraced with a wood-burning pen. Careful, steady, the way she would have done it. The box sits on my bedroom dresser now. Not hidden, not displayed, just home. 3 weeks after the meeting, my phone buzzed. Brooke's name on the screen. A text. Mom, can I come Saturday? Not to the house, to the class. I read it twice. Then I typed 2 words and pressed send. Bring scissors. I don't know if my daughter will ever learn to sew, but she's asking to try. And that's the first stitch. My house, my building, my box, my terms. Love is not negotiable. Respect is. My mother taught me that the strongest stitch is the one no one sees, the one that holds everything together from the inside long after the hands that made it are gone. Saturday class. The workshop humming it again. Not with the old industrial machines, but with the smaller ones Tyler set up for beginners. 8 stations, 8 women and girls. Afternoon light through the storefront windows falling on fabric and hands in concentration. Lily sat at Helen's machine, tongue out, shoulders hunched. She was sewing a straight seam, the first thing my mother taught me 60 years ago on the same machine in the same room. Tyler watched from the doorway, arms crossed, smiling the way he smiles when his students finish their first dovetail joint. He understands what I understand. Craft is how you teach someone they matter. Lily held up her fabric. The seam wasn't straight. It wandered left then right, then left again, like a road that couldn't make up its mind. Grandma is this good. I put my hand on the cedar box sitting on the workshop table. Brass hinges. Helen's initials. It's your first one. It's perfect. That's my story. 1 sewing box, 1 pin cushion. And a daughter who learned that the things we throw away sometimes hold more than we'll ever earn. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.